This says, screw you, Joker is not a real thing. But that upsets Harley because she's still very much living in her own fantasy, and that's why she loved Joker at the beginning. And she says, well, if you're not living this fantasy anymore, I'm out of here.
Look around! Look at all these people! I will no longer allow any of you...
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the FilmBudsPodcast. This is episode number 581, and my name is Henry. This time I have a collection show with reviews of Joker, the 2019 film, and then Joker Folie, Deux, the very polarizing sequel. Thanks as always for joining us. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, follow, and thanks to all those who have. Really appreciate it. Hope you'll stick around. Follow us on YouTube if you have not done that yet. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the first review, which is Joker. So take a listen. Let's get to Joker from 2019. It's directed by Todd Phillips, stars Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, Francis Conroy, Shea Wiggum. And the synopsis is, Arthur Fleck, a party clown and a failed stand-up comedian, leads an impoverished life with his ailing mother. However, when society shuns him and brands him as a freak, he decides to embrace the life of chaos in Gotham City. Well, when this one was released and the build-up to it, people went nuts for it. It made $1 billion at the box office. It got Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar, amongst many other accolades as well. I've seen it a handful of times, but even when I first saw it, I really, really liked it. I don't think it's perfect, but as far as superhero films or comic book films go, it's one of my favorites. Before I get more into that, I know that there are a lot of haters of this movie, which to each their own, fair enough. But I know one main criticism that I read is people criticize the shallowness of the psychological aspect of Arthur Fleck. That's something I can see it in a sense, but compared to all the other movies, compared to all the other character studies, both comic book films and not, I don't know why this one, I know people just love to hate on DC for some reason, but I don't really understand why this one, the, I guess, shallowness of it is a bigger issue compared to other ones, because there are plenty of celebrated movies that don't go any further into their ideas than this one does. Not to say it's undeserving of any criticism, but that has always sort of baffled me. I was very emotionally invested, psychologically invested. I really like the portrayal of Arthur Fleck being this person who is completely run down by society, by those around him. He's disregarded. The medical system is failing him. The city itself is dying in a sense, and he just cannot get ahead. He's dragging through life while also taking care of his mother and really does not have a life of his own. And then he's failing at the things that he really wants to do that makes him happy. And that's something that I think most people can relate to in a sense. Everybody gets a point in their life when they're just bogged down by everything. They're beaten down. They're worn out. And in some ways, the rebellion of him in this movie, while obviously it's criminal, I think there's still that experiential nature where it's showing this guy bouncing back and bouncing back very hard. I know also that when this came out, there was a lot of criticism as to it possibly inciting violence. I don't mean to be contrarian for the sake of it. I'm just honestly saying how all of these things that people put onto this movie, projected onto it, was way overblown. I see movies every month about people being disregarded, being thrown away, fighting the man, that sort of thing, and rising up, causing violence, causing this, causing that, in a variety of ways, and those don't seem to be criticized for that. So I think that those observations, if that's you, fine. I just disagree. I don't think that there's really a lot there to really pinpoint as, yes, this is what this means or this is what that means. And what I love, because I knew her work before this, and I was so happy to see that she got this huge opportunity, and she won the Oscar for it as well. Cannot say her name properly, so I'm not even going to try. I don't want to butcher it too much, but the composer, who is an Icelandic composer, the score is incredible. That really bassy, edgy string music throughout the whole thing, like the moment you hear that, you know you're in for something very different, tonally and emotionally. At least in terms of what I was expecting going in. You know, I didn't expect it to be as grueling and grim and lived in as it really does feel. Todd Phillips in general, he's a bit hit and miss for me. I like The Hangover a lot. War Dogs, not a huge fan. I like Old School. Performance-wise, Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, he's one of the best actors working today, in my opinion. He's always been one of my favorites for years. And I know that if they had a lesser actor in this, it would not be the same movie. He definitely carries it and gives the movie more depth. Just being a fish out of water, not really connecting with people well, scaring people. The laugh is very unsettling, effectively so. And I like that they also explain that in terms of him having this card that says, I have a condition, and they do a decent job of making that seem like this is a real guy. It's not him falling into a vat of acid and becoming the Joker. It's, here, I have this condition that's causing this uncontrollable laughter, and then he was a clown for work, and so fit all the pieces together. As Arthur Fleck sees himself towards the beginning as if he was on Robert De Niro's show, his talk show, and that fantasy of being seen, being beloved, being cared for. The scenes with the therapist or the psychiatrist, whoever it is, and her not really having the ability to help him because of how failed the system is around him, and then just in general not being the best help by herself either. So that's definitely sadly a very relevant thing nowadays in terms of people finding the right help for what's going on or being listened to, especially in the medical field. Zazie Beetz is another good part of the film. She doesn't have a whole lot to do, but I like that character and that dream sequence of him when he gets invigorated and he opens up the door and kisses her. I think that's, considering it's a dream, I think it's effective. The bathroom dance, iconic, of course. That's one of the more referenced parts of the movie, and I know that that was a bit of a off-the-cuff choice by Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix at the time. And then when things go crazy and he kills the guy in the apartment and he's wearing the white face paint, and that all builds up to him in some ways becoming the person that he wants to. For the worse, obviously, but for him, that's what he wants. One of the more unsettling scenes that didn't really need to be there, but I think it's very creepy, is when he goes to Wayne Manor and he sees Bruce behind the gate and he just sticks his fingers in the boy's mouth and makes him smile. Like, it's so gross to think if that was actually, like, could you imagine that being your kid and you walking up and seeing some random person do that to your child? Like, pretty crazy, but, you know, in the context of the movie, I don't doubt him for doing something as weird as that. The killing of Robert De Niro live on the show is pretty insane and very, I mean, you knew something like that was coming, but it's very shocking when it happens. Some design choices that are very good. The look of Arthur Fleck before he really becomes Joker, with how his outfits really feel both like he's a little kid, but also an old guy. I don't know how that was accomplished, but I think that comes through completely. The Joker suit, when he becomes Joker, quote unquote, it feels sort of like how he used to dress, just much more vivid and very 70s in nature. All in all, I think I will always remain a fan of it, big fan of it. I would be more than open to other interpretations of Joker. I never really tire of him, but that is a heavy 4.5 out of 5. Let's get to Joker Folie à Deux. It's directed by Todd Phillips, stars Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, Brendan Gleeson, Catherine Keener, Zazie Beetz, Steve Coogan, and the synopsis is: struggling with his dual identity, failed comedian Arthur Fleck meets the love of his life, Harley Quinn, while incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital. There's a lot to say about this movie. I don't know exactly where to begin. I'm going to do my best to keep my thoughts organized and cover as much as I can. When this was announced, I know that there was a lot of questions as to where it was going to go. I think even Joaquin Phoenix at first was like, I didn't want to do one until everything came together. There was the right story. But considering how much I liked the first one, especially when they said Lady Gaga was going to be Harley Quinn, the reviews, both critically and audience-wise, were horrible for the most part. It had one of the biggest or the biggest box office drop for a superhero film maybe ever in terms of the first weekend to the second weekend. It had the worst cinema score by an audience for any comic book film, beating out like Madam Web recently and a lot of others that had flopped. The budget was around $200 million, and it's only made about $200 million back, so a box office failure all in all. And I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of flack. Flat out, I've never been as entertained by a movie in a long time. It's got some issues that I'll get to, and let me say, if you don't like it, I'm not trying to convince you or say that you're wrong. To each their own. You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. So I'm not trying to get on all the naysayers or anything like that, just simply saying my opinion based on how I thought on my first viewing of it. When it comes to the musical stuff, I wasn't that worried about it. I know that considering the marketing, it did not market that as a musical, which Warner Brothers has been doing a lot over the years. I understand if you went in thinking, okay, this is a Joker sequel. I loved the first one. I saw the trailers, which just showed some of Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. I'm in. You know, that's not the fault of the viewer, the average viewer. I didn't know how the musical stuff was going to be incorporated, so I was very curious in that way. I thought it was done maybe not flawlessly every single time, but I loved how those dance numbers, those music numbers were connected to the story, and that mainly from what I got is you're living in the fantasy of Joker and Harley Quinn. It's not necessarily them singing this in real life. I mean, occasionally it is, but I thought it was primarily them being in a situation in which they could not communicate properly to someone and how they feel, and or they didn't know how to communicate what they're feeling to that person. The film looks amazing. Like, I know everybody is saying that in terms of even the haters. The lighting, even in its darkest, most drab locations like Arkham, looks great. The difference of color tones, the oranges, the grays, the blues, the costume design, for example, the look of Harley Quinn at the end, every outfit and that evolution of her look throughout the movie with her clothes, with her hair, with her makeup, and with the lighting and the look, there's a lot of deep focus cinematography, which was refreshing. And that's how it is in the first Joker, too, but I thought it was used even better in this. The look of the city, everything from the meeting of Joker and Harley, and that relationship evolving very quickly, not in terms of it feeling rushed, but their connection being very strong and immediate. And I thought Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga had great chemistry. But that relationship becoming a little bit more complicated when, and spoilers here, when Harley reveals that she made up large amounts of what she told Joker at first because she's someone who admired him a lot when he created the rebellion or movement that he did. She checked herself into Arkham so she could meet him, and she even got an apartment in his building where he lived with his mom. Even though in reality she comes from a wealthy family, she's a psychiatrist as we know her to be. I thought that was a very interesting sleight of hand because I thought fully, okay, they're just changing the character for this movie, which they did in some ways, but her playing with Joker's more than anything, but our psychology of that character and what we think she is. The courtroom sequence, it went on a long time. I knew going in that it was pretty long. You never know how that's going to go, but I thought it was very involving. I thought that there was a lot of variety. There was a lot of interesting discussions. The reveal of Arthur Fleck and his mom was very abusive to him as a child, which we didn't really know in the first film. His doctor saying the government, the city, put Arthur Fleck back in the home with his mom, with his abuser, and so that abuse would then continue, which makes the relationship between the two of them even that much stranger, considering it's like almost like Stockholm Syndrome, reintroductions of all the characters who he ran into in the first film, like the coworker who he killed the other guy in front of him. That was a very enlightening sequence when he's on the stand, and their stories in some ways being discredited, but then others being exactly on point. One of the most unexpected and very, very funny is when Arthur Fleck represents himself and he puts on the Southern accent, plays this very traditional hoity-toity lawyer, and it's really so ridiculous, but he sells it so well. It was hard to even pay that much attention to what they're saying because I was enjoying that performance so much. Jumping to the end real quick, I know a lot of people do not like the ending. My wife, for one, does not like the ending either. I didn't know what the ending was going to be. I was expecting it to be something in the vein of this, so it didn't really shock me. The progression of the ending, the explosion at the courthouse, then Arthur gets out, he's with people who worship him and are trying to help him, but then he gets out because he wants to go see Harley, and he does. Harley, who we had already seen walking out of the courtroom because Joker says while he's there, "I'm just Arthur Fleck. I'm not Joker. I killed those people. I wish I hadn't, but here we are." That hit me because it's showing, as opposed to what the first one did, which shows Arthur Fleck mainly as a hero, not really a pure hero, but a hero to a lot of people within the movie. Then he gets caught by the police once again, put back in Arkham, and the final sequence is him having a visitor. He's walking down a hallway, and one of the other inmates basically says, "You failed me as this idol, as this Joker figure who was gonna lead the world or lead all the underappreciated people into the light, and you've ruined everything now that you've said you're just Arthur." And he stabs him repeatedly, and Arthur dies. What makes that work so well for me is that we see in the background when Arthur is bleeding out, the guy who stabbed him is carving up his face, and he's starting to laugh maniacally. I'm guessing that's presuming, okay, he's going to be the next quote-unquote Joker. We've had so many variations and reinterpretations, and that's why Joker is so fascinating, is you can do whatever you want with them, and you're not inherently wrong. When the first film was announced, it was said that, okay, this is not the origin or like true origin of the Joker. It's in its own little world of DC. It shows you in a very tragic way, but a very truthful way to me, of the insignificance of Arthur Fleck to the idea of Joker. It could be anyone. Just as it's expressed in the first film when he leads this rebellion and there are all these people around him wearing the masks, wearing the makeup. They look exactly like him. They're doing the exact same thing. So the name Arthur Fleck will probably be very soon forgotten in the big scheme of things in this world, because all those people who are acting out just want a leader to follow. They don't care if it's Arthur Fleck specifically. Sure, they might see him as an icon or something, but the next guy, he's probably going to do something even crazier and do more outlandish things and set his own dark legacy. And just the fact that that final moment was so quiet. As for the singing itself, I know Lady Gaga said, it took me a long time to try and not sound like me or like Lady Gaga. She definitely accomplished that. Even her physical look does not really remind me that much of Lady Gaga. Sometimes when I hear the voice, there are little notes that she can't escape from being recognizable as her. Joaquin Phoenix, who reminded me a little bit of Johnny Depp in that he has that rugged, guttural kind of singing that's for sure has some range, but there are some issues, not in a bad way. It just feels more raw and authentic as Joker would be if he was singing. Some of the standout musical numbers when Harley and Joker try and escape and Arkham is on fire and they're running towards the gate. When they're on the rooftop and it's very blue and there's that kind of La La Land-esque set. The Joker and Harley Quinn show that looks like the Murray show from the first one, and it's them bouncing off of each other and making the audience laugh, as well as the moment of violence when she shoots him and that comes back around at Arkham and they're speaking through the glass and suddenly she just starts singing and dancing in her little booth. And I think that there's comedy there. I think that there's a self-awareness of what they're doing because of how they shoot certain numbers in terms of some wide shots, some close-ups. It feels like, okay, we know that this is ridiculous and not real. Probably my favorite, I think, because of just how deranged and crazy it is. And also it looks great, but it's a really unhinged moment where I think you see the most inner workings of Joker and Harley is the courtroom number. Harley is dancing on the table. She's putting the blood across her lips. Joker is smashing the judge's head in with a mallet, then puts the gun up to his head, fires, and there's that blood spurt, and then it cuts back to reality. A kind of reminiscent of Elvis I got when they're at the jazz club, I think it is, and he's tap dancing. The solo number with Harley, putting on the makeup in the mirror. The opening with the classic Looney Tunes cartoon segment that's very R-rated and bloody, but then it cuts back to Arkham, and that's how it opens. Honestly, I just couldn't say enough about, and I'll talk about some more specifics in a little bit, but I just thought that there was so much ambition and artistry and thoughtfulness with this, trying to do something different, and I haven't really seen anything like this before. It's hard to even say which one I like more. I like them both for different reasons. If I had to choose right now, I think I would say Joker 2 over Joker 1. That one is a heavy 4.5. Could be a 5 one day, but for now, let's go 4.5 out of 5. All right, well, that is it for this week. Again, rate, review, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, all that good stuff. And if you're new, please stick around. We hope you will check out our deep catalog of episodes and keep an eye out for exciting new interviews coming up in the next few weeks. Got some really good guests, and hope you enjoyed it even half as much as I did. And I'll see you next time, y'all.